Voltron. There's only one way to defeat a supreme robot who's loved by good and feared by evil. Pit that force against itself. In an age where reboots are ubiquitous, we're seeing all of our childhood favorites redone, such as TMNT and G.I. Joe, in addition to the Transformers juggernaut. But what makes Voltron a revamp that's worth our cue? Hi, I'm Adrian with ChannelFrederator, and we're here to revisit the time we were all watching the first Voltron after grabbing the small toy from the bottom of the cereal box on a Sunday morning, and see if it checks out against the new release of Voltron Legendary Defender, as we still eat the cereal, but sadly without a toy. We'll find out if Netflix trumps nostalgia, cause you're watching Voltron now versus the 80s. Let's get started. A nod to nostalgia. Underpinning the battle of now versus then is the power of nostalgia. Do the same things we love about it back then still hold up in the new version? Yes! Voltron Legendary Defender is a perfect premise, and they don't mess with our original characters too much. No key players were removed, and the look wasn't drastically changed. They also didn't deviate from the tropes we remember. For example, they created an alternate universe in order to keep with the old story, but still add new plots in the reboot. Executive producer JOAQUIM dos Santos said, "We like to think we're not making the show we watched, rather the show we remember watching. The fact is, most fans haven't seen the first Voltron in many years, but its tropes are still etched into our memories. Thus, the look of the characters are very similar, the theme of teamwork still stands, and Voltron's weapons remain the same. The showrunners promised to make the show you remember while filling in all the gaps of the original." There are also Easter eggs peppered throughout the series that are serious nods to die-hard aficionados. One includes the name Shiro, which stems from the original Go Lines character, Takashi Shirogane, who ended up becoming Sven. There's also an image of Roy Fokker from Robotech in the first episode, and Pidge does the famous pose that Gendo does in Neon Genesis Evangelion. Try listing some more Easter eggs in the comments. Characters. One aspect in which a new version clearly triumphs is that of character development. Gone are the one-dimensional types of the 80s. They've been replaced by three-dimensional individuals with more meat to the characters. In addition, they've finally managed to match the outfits the paladins wear to the line they pilot. Let's examine our 5 heroes. First, there's Keith, the commanding officer of the Black Lion. Not much has changed in his appearance, but he's no longer the leader in the reboot. He's a wild child, yet still displays a no-nonsense attitude, always training and always eager to learn more. Keith has undergone a good amount of change, but we believe he's changed for the better. Then there's Lance, the second in command. While his actual color now matches that of his lion, the color of his character has remained consistent. I'm not sure if he's a ladies' man or a lady's worst nightmare, but his overconfidence definitely lands comedically. He does always feel inferior to Keith, so maybe it stems from having competition. Of course, there's Pidge, the Green Line's paladin, the squirrely, level genius from the past we all know and love, or at least tolerate. But the producers have made a genius move with this new version. Pidge's androgynous appearance and ambiguous gender, although hinted at constantly, is left unclear until episode 6, when Pidge tells Allura, "Just so there are no secrets between us anymore. I can't man up. I'm a girl. I can man up, but that's just a figure of speech. I don't actually have to be a man to man up." Her team's shocked, but very accepting. And then there's Hung. We're so glad they didn't touch this guy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This frank, flatulent fellow still has everything we love about him and more. He's scared to death as usual, until called into action, when he emerges as the strongest of the group, at least physically and not emotionally. Then there's Shiro, the nominal leader. Shiro's the character who's perhaps changed the most, both in appearance and attitude, but the changes have all been for the good. Besides his name change, he now has a cyborg arm, a touch of white hair, and he's of Japanese descent, versus Sven's Norwegian descent in the original. For such a dynamic hero, and the head of his majestic machine, his character demanded an evolution to truly become a leader and live up to his name. The transformation sequence. A feature from the original that stands alone is the beloved transformation sequence. When you ask people if they ever watched Voltron, you can tell who are the ones that have fond memories of it by the look in their eye when their mind wanders to those robot lions coming together. 5 colorful flying felines, with streaks of color following. Our fearless leader shouting, "Form arms and body, and I'll form the head." The major difference is that they don't show this transformation sequence in every episode of the reboot like they do with the old one. But when they do show it, it's matched perfectly to the old version, along with the logistics and mechanics worked out, almost Transformers-like. They soar through space and get into formation, still with streams of light, but it's almost like a dance now. Gears connect, power is transferred, and then, wait for it, the lions growl. Yes! The final tableau is with a fully figured Voltron and a flash of light allowing the super robot to flex his mechanical muscles to completion. Animation. We don't want to imply that these two shows can't compete when it comes to visuals, but one thing we'll say is this: classic Voltron was ahead of its time. When the show first debuted in 1984, kids and adults alike were astounded at the animation. It proved that when Japan and America team up in animation, and in entertainment in general, great things ensue. This paved the way for a flood of joint ventures, including this very reboot. After experimenting and having a couple failed reboots behind them, like Mr. Peabody and Sherman, Dreamworks finally found their groove and hit their stride with this remake, using a mix of identical space, along with characters and machine drawing, while still managing to wow us with stimulating fight sequences in full color and fast action. And it helps that the mouths actually sync with the words this time. As mentioned, they also match up the colors of our heroes and the respective lines to get our nitpickiness in check, and they continue to enchant us with perfectly animated comedic timing. Voice acting. Speaking of matching mouths with dialogue, when it comes to voice acting in the reboot, the producers pulled out all the stops. The roster is full of absolute pros, boasting resumes that make the animation demographic drool. The cast list includes Jeremy Shada from Adventure Time, who plays Lance, Steven Yeun from The Walking Dead, who plays Keith, Bex Taylor Klaus of Arrow, who plays Pidge, Josh Keaton of Green Lantern, who plays Shiro, Tyler Labine from Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, who voices Hunk, Kimberly Brooks from Mass Effect, who voices Allura, and RHYS Darby of Flight of the Conchords, who voices Korra. If you grew up watching the show in the 80s, you reached adulthood watching it and most likely remember the sound of those old voices. It goes to show that in animation, voice acting is crucial, and these voices go straight through our ears and into our hearts. And these new voices live up to the old ones, so no angry fans here. Story and lore. I mean, duh. Zarkon made Hagar disguise herself as a goddess, and when Voltron came near, she placed a curse on him, breaking him into 5 distinct parts of a robot lion, and okay, pause. Take a breath. This can get a little confusing, especially with spin-offs that seem to change the thread here and there. And this isn't surprising. The original Voltron was filled with gaps and editing holes, and the new showrunners have stated that the original was a product of what the team back then had to work with and were able to do at the time. Today, the current team isn't bound by these limitations. The main premise still remains. 5 peacekeeping space rangers from Earth reawaken the legendary Voltron to protect the besieged planet of RHYS from the evil King Zarkon of Planet Doom. The notable differences, including those mentioned above, are Keith not being the leader and Princess Allura not commanding a lion. One major difference in the story is that the original didn't show the episodes in sequential order, which threw off the overarching narrative a bit. They didn't even form Voltron until episode 4. Thank Alfor we got to see the formation of Voltron in episode 1 in the reboot, where it belongs. Some of us have been waiting for more than 25 years. Reception. On September 10, 1984, Voltron premiered to the world, reaching 65% of households, becoming a surprise success. This inaugurated a worldwide love affair with the franchise, spawning toys that flew off the shelves that Christmas. It takes a special show to not only come back strong 30 years later, but to also continue to thrive well with its maturation. We now know that this superhuman, and just plain super robot, is not going anywhere. We've seen rave reviews indicated by 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8.9 out of 10 on IGN, and 4 out of 5 on Common Sense Media. The critics and fans have spoken in both percentages and fractions. They crave more Voltron, and guess what? Their craving will be fed. A live-action movie is in the works as we speak, but if you're a real fan, you knew that already. Violence. In this new era, we certainly like our violence more than before, at least in our entertainment. In classic Voltron, there were major glaring edits that were poorly hidden, when the editors obviously took out certain forms of violence. At times, we could see Lance shooting at beings of indeterminate location, made unclear by not showing the actual impact. There's one especially comical instance of this, when Hunk picked up an alien, went to break him over his knee, then it cut to a reaction shot of revulsion from Lance. These days, we aren't as squeamish when it comes to visible, visceral violence, and the fight scenes in the reboot are accordingly more smooth and satisfying. Every character seems to have his or her own style and uses it to maximize their capabilities. Production. This is an area in which only time will tell. Voltron Legendary Defender came out in June of 2016 on Netflix, with 11 episodes and a renewal set to launch in January 2017. In 1984, Voltron was released and proceeded to put out 124 episodes and a 1-hour special. Adjusted for robot inflation, that's almost equal to 11 seasons of the original Voltron, not including the spin-offs. Does this reboot have what it takes to produce even half the episode count? The critics have largely said, we think so, and the fans have largely said, we hope so. And we can't wait. Diversity. One thing we can say for certain is that Voltron Legendary Defender has been swept up in the much needed and long overdue push for increased diversity. One positive change was the above mentioned swap of Pidge's sex. Even though some female fans may be disappointed that they took out the pink lion, there's another big win with the character of Allura. Princess Allura is much more powerful than before. She is the woman in charge, and moreover she is now a woman of color. This allows us to believe in a future where we all fight for each other and with each other for the good of mankind. Allura now shoulders the burden of the intergalactic war more more than any other character. One could argue that this is her story, with the other threads as subplots. Other diverse enhancements include giving Hunk darker skin, Shiro being Asian as mentioned, and Lance being changed to a less homogeneous appearance. Once again, I'm Adrian, and thanks for watching Voltron Now vs the 80s. You can now stop paying attention and go watch more Voltron Legendary Defender. But first, tell us what you like about the new series. What do you like better about the 80s version? Comment below and let us know. And if you like the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button to catch all our latest content. Cause remember, Frederator loves you.